Welcome, everyone. I'm Patricia Kranz, the Executive Director of the Overseas Press Club of America. I'm delighted to welcome you to another one in our series of programs on Zoom, where we have the head judge of that award interview the winner of that award. And tonight, always a highlight of the awards dinner, is the Best Cartoon Award. And congratulations, Adam Zyglis of the Buffalo News, who won it this year. And he is going to be interviewed by Rob Rogers, a cartoonist who was the head judge this year, and who also won the OPC's Best Cartoon Award in 1999 and 2012. I'm going to do a few logistical things before I turn it over to Rob. We are going to let Rob and Adam have a discussion for approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and then we will open it up to questions. And please put your questions in the chat room. Let us know if you want to ask it yourself. If you do, Chad of the OPC will unmute you and you can ask it. Or if you just write it in the chat room, Chad will read it out and Adam can answer it. And we'll do it that way. You can write your questions as you think of them, but we will wait until approximately half an hour until we start entertaining the questions. So Rob, over to you.
Well, thank you, Patty, and thank you, Chad, for putting this together. And I'm honored to be asked to interview my friend Adam Zyglis. Hey. Hey, congratulations, Adam. This is great. Let me just give the viewers a little background on you. Adam Zyglis is the Pulitzer Prize-winning cartoonist for the Buffalo News, where he has been the staff cartoonist since 2004. Adam is syndicated through Kegel Cartoons, and his work has appeared in too many publications to list here, but you can find that online, I'm sure. He has also won too many awards to list here. But the list includes the 2015 Pulitzer Prize for editorial cartooning. And of course, it includes now the Overseas Press Club Award. Just a quick note, the runner-up for this year's award was Matt Worker of Politico. So congratulations to Matt. And I didn't do this all on my own. I had some other judges helping, and those judges were Chelsea Saunders, Jenny Robb, Tony Norman, and Nick Kozar. So thanks to all the judges. And I'd like to, Adam, if I could just read the judge's statement that we sent to the Overseas Press Club to honor you with the award. And this is the judge's statement. Adam Zyglis is a cartoonist in the bloody-fingered tradition of Thomas Nast, but with a little James Gilray's whimsy thrown in. His portfolio consists of powerful and insightful commentary on a wide variety of international issues, including climate change, Ukraine conspiracies, the US abandonment of Kurdish allies, Brexit, and Trump's fealty to dictators. An impressive caricaturist, Zyglis is the kind of cartoonist who would have to be jailed immediately if he lived abroad. That's the standard by which all great political cartoonists should be judged. So there you go. Congratulations to you. And how do you live up to that, huh?
Well, I have to say, thanks to you and the rest of the judges. Those are the nicest, kindest words anyone has ever written about my work. So I will treasure that. And also, thanks so much to Patty and the Overseas Press Club of America. It's quite an incredible honor. And you know, previous recipients like you, Rob, have really just held such a high standard with this award. So it's really an incredible thing to receive. And during the pandemic, like I mentioned, with receiving such great news, it was wonderful.
Well, you know, before we get into the cartoons, let's start there. One of the questions I'm sure people will have is how is it working during a pandemic? I mean, just in my case, I was already working a lot in my home studio, so it really hasn't changed that much for me. But you go into the office on a normal day, right?
Yeah, well, starting several years back, I started developing a home office and studio after I had foot surgery. And so I had a home office presence, but I would say 60%, 50 to 60% of my day, I still spent in the newsroom, which was great. I mean, I love the energy of, talking to my colleagues and just, walking around, changing the environment. I think of a lot of ideas just with movement, like by work, like when I'm in the car, I'll jot an idea down when I'm done driving. So
yeah, we wouldn't
not
want
when I'm
any
driving.
accidents.
But yeah, like the change of scenery is something I struggle with now that I'm home. I try to get out because it helps my brain work. If I'm sitting in the same space, I feel like things can get stagnant. The added challenge for me is I have two little kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and our 4-year-old is she's a spitfire. She's awesome. Vera is just like full of energy and life, but right now she's getting into trouble. She's actually the ringleader with our two kids, and it's so great to be with them. But at the same time, I'm juggling deadlines and trying to be with my wife, like, sort of a daycare worker and then a teacher for our son who's in 2nd grade. So it's a lot to juggle. Like right now things have gotten a little better, but it's just, I work at night. I kind of, I find different ways to change my schedule around. So as long as I meet my deadlines, my editors are cool.
Well, that's great. So let's get into the cartoons. You had 12 cartoons in your entry, right? And you're gonna walk us through all 12 cartoons.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about them as we go.
Let me, I'm going to share my screen here and I'm going to pull up some of the cartoons. So just 1 second. Okay. I tried to clean my desktop before I did this. It's
always
my Trump color reference, the same picture.
My wife, orange palette, right?
I almost want to pull this up real quick because it's just,
go ahead. Yeah.
This is the image that I used to pull the color palette, so it's consistent in all the times I draw Trump. Just she can't stand it because she'll walk by my computer when I'm coloring, and that'll be up on the screen, and it's not the most flattering photo of our commander-in-chief. All right, let me see. Let me go back to the beginning here. Sorry. Here we go. All right, here is the first of the entry of 12. So this one, the State of the Union is strong. This obviously took place, I drew this after the State of the Union or in advance of the State of the Union from our president in his speech. And, I wanted to sort of sum up the previous several years of chumming up to these dictators that we have. Vladimir Putin, Mohammed bin Salman, and the leader of Brazil, Bolsonaro. I mean, I wanted to show sort of, more of like a comical way of how just dark, some of these bonds are that he has with these people, and just kind of, keep it to a simple, strong image in what should be a very American State of the Union event. I tried to make it more about his anti-Americanism in a way.
Right. And, the funny thing is when I saw this image, I mean, it was a great image and I immediately got what you were saying, but I also thought about, the NFL players that sometimes lock arms instead of kneeling to show patriotism
right.
or unity in some way. And that's kind of what this reminded me of. But,
and I was almost thinking, like, after Charlie Hebdo too, a lot of the European global leaders would walk, with locked arms in support of free speech. So that's sort of a universally understood, sort of position of unity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's great. And of course the no shirt on, it's funny, Putin, every cartoonist I know draws him without a shirt. And it was one of those things kind of like Trump's tie that just kind of happened. Yeah. He had that one photo on a horseback and without a shirt on. And then suddenly everybody's drawing him without a shirt. And even Saturday night, I think Saturday Night Live depicts him without a shirt on sometimes. Yeah. So it's funny how those things happen, and it happens, it almost happens globally.
It does.
And it's not really plagiarism. It's just, we all do it and it becomes,
it's like communal satire. Yeah. I mean, it's cartoonists are a part of it. And like, places like SNL, like you said, like anyone that's a practitioner of satire kind of taps into sort of to this collective imagery And it's like we're playing off of each other, almost like how jazz artists, you know, would sort of speak to an artist and like reference some of their work in their work. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And then you can add your own little details. Like I like to add instead of a cross, because Putin usually has a cross. So I have a little T.
I didn't even notice that. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, you got to put little Easter eggs in there.
Yeah, that's a good one. Wow.
Cufflinks. And I usually, with Mohammed bin Salman, I'll often have, and you know, my editors don't like when I put too much blood in, but like some of the dirt around his hands, because his hands are always dirty or bloody, I'll tend to have, you know, referencing the death of the Washington Post journalist. So just little subtle details there.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right.
Shall we move on? All right.
Yep.
Okay, so the next one here is Sweden does everything better. Safer cars like the Volvo, cheaper bookshelves, IKEA, and stronger leadership. And Greta Thunberg here with her fiery speeches on climate change, you know, standing up the world's leaders. In this one, women are hard to draw, I think, girls, women in general, because the line is heavy and it's somehow, you know, it ages, it's hard to sort of capture subtlety. So I was happy with my drawing of her just because it captured sort of this, like, her expression.
Mm-hmm.
But this idea was born from personal experience in a lot of ways, because for years I was a Volvo driver. I actually don't drive a Volvo right now, but that basically was like my car. I drew, and then you know, I put together those IKEA bookshelves for my sons. So that's very much from life. And I have a friend, Sean, who had moved to Sweden years back, and we keep in touch every once in a while. And it's kind of a running joke that like just Sweden just does things so well, like, you know, because we'll share stories and anecdotes. And so a lot of this is sort of from personal experience. And, you know, when I was showing the idea around, you know, because the thrust of the idea is at the end, the punchline, the third panel, just a child sort of like showing up. I wanted her stature to be, you know, like visually large compared to the adults, which I depicted as much smaller in the background, and just showing how, you know, sort of from the mouths of babes, like we need young people on this issue. But I was using the concept of, you know, these other things to sort of speak to that. And I'm glad that it kind of communicated the way I wanted to.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite out of the portfolio, just because I think, you know, climate change is such an important issue, but I also think you just nailed it, and in a very creative way that I didn't see anyone else sort of come up with a way of getting to this quite like this. So I thought this was really ingenious.
Thanks.
And I do love that, you know, the adults, like you said, are in the background, and you still got the Trump tie.
Right.
Pointing to her a little bit, but
yeah,
no, I thought this was great.
That's the goal with these, with the challenge with some of the topics that we draw on almost every week, like climate change, is to try to be different. So I'm glad, you know, this kind of was just a unique way to approach it.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, as cartoonists, we all look at each other's work from time to time, or sometimes we avoid it when we're trying not to be too influenced.
It's funny, I do the same thing. I go from consuming lots of it to shutting it out. Yeah, especially if you're, you know, for me, especially if I'm coming up with something that I know other people are probably working on either that same day or the day before. Now with the internet, you know, people can post it immediately, and I still like to wait till the next day to post it because of my syndication and whatnot. But yeah, it's hard to avoid it if you don't just turn it off, you know, because you can see something and then it can ruin it for you, because you'll be like, so oh man. Right. I've changed gears several times based on looking at Instagram or Facebook and just ruining my deadline.
Right. Yeah. All right, here we go.
So the next one, The Call. And this was drawn at sort of the height of the impeachment inquiry in response to the Ukraine call, the center of the impeachment proceedings. And again, when something is, you know, you can relate when these huge stories that are consuming the news every single day. For me as a cartoonist, I strive to just get a like just striking image to sort of capture the moment in history. Not every time, but like on big issues, I kind of want one of these like more simple, strong images to just be more, I wanted this to be more artful. You know, I wanted to convey a strong message, but also just kind of capture that moment and really have it just a little bit more into like just sort of like a thoughtful piece where it was capturing the visual of Trump on the phone, but like having him unravel, I wanted it to kind of really just represent unraveling more so in terms of his duty as president. And like I purposely made the phone cord connected to himself because the call was all about him and all about what he wanted for his own reelection. So, I mean, I didn't expect readers to get that from that detail, but I put those little details in just, you know, for extra layers. You know, and also I thought this could be his unraveling, undoing as president. And at the moment, of course, things are so crazy with this presidency that it seems so long ago and it seems like not that big of an issue looking back, but at the moment it was the mountain of, you know, what things were building up to be. So. Yeah,
and it was emblematic of his presidency, which was just, you know, which is just out of control. And all about him. So that was great. I love your use of white space in this one too, because he just kind of disappears at the bottom. There's no desk. There's no, you know, there's no surface. He's just unraveling.
Right.
So I thought that was really well done.
Thanks.
Okay, we may be, you know, talking too slowly, so let's move along a little bit.
Okay.
I'm realizing we're taking up some time, but that's fine.
Well, this is the same theme, so this one won't be that long, but this is the same theme on Ukraine during the impeachment inquiry. So I thought, you know, I had to hit Trump, and as a cartoonist, I wanted to also hold the Republican Party accountable for how they were treating these hearings. And really just a lot of their questioning was parroting Putin and a lot of the Russian-Ukraine conspiracy theories with Biden, Burisma, and all these things that were debunked, that like Ukraine really, you know, tampered in the election, not Russia. So I did this, you know, concept with the Kool-Aid. Now the Kool-Aid is kind of a cliched idea, so I wanted to put a twist on it, and I think cartoonists like to do that if it's a popular idea. So having it like you know, White Russians, I thought worked. So.
But I also love the drawing of the elephant, because we all do this. We all like anthropomorphize the elephant, right?
Right.
Like a congressman with a suit, but he's an elephant to represent the GOP, and I think that's great here. But you took it in like a demonic direction here with this one. I mean, this one's giving me nightmares. The bottom teeth, for some reason, are all showing. And then the little, what do they call them?
Tusks.
The tusks. Yeah, thank you.
I do get
at a weird angle. So anyway, this one was disturbing.
I get emails from people telling me how my elephants are not anatomically correct. I'm like, do elephants wear suits? I didn't. Yeah. So. Here, another just sort of simple image to capture the moment, which was in early 2019 when the president was escalating war with Iran. You know, if you remember the news at the time, Iran had attacked Saudi oil fields, and things were heating up very quickly. There was, you know, a drone shot down, and the president reported in the New York Times had authorized military action, and then all of a sudden, you know, walked away from it. So I wanted to use his sort of campaign because he kind of promised to pull us out of war. You know, he wanted us to focus at home. That's why I showed this sort of the image of him coming down the escalator, like when he started. And, you know, the converse side having war being escalated. Yeah,
that's really great. I think sometimes these simple images are the best, you know, no words, just the image of war going up. And I like that it's the golden escalator.
Right. This sixth one of the entry, this one to me was almost like local being in Buffalo. So this is titled Brownface, and that's Justin Trudeau in response to yearbook photo and video. I think it was like 2001. He was in brownface. It was like an Arabian Nights themed event, and it was a big dust up. It was a big deal here in Buffalo too, because we're right on the border of Canada. And I've used I have this icon of the beaver with the Canadian flag on his tail, which is common for Canadian cartoonists to represent Canada. So I'm kind of, I'm 1/3 Canadian as a cartoonist in Buffalo. And so this is speaking to that issue and also having fun with it. I like this approach because Trudeau is so pretty and his face is a great looking guy. So it's kind of like a nice contrast to, how great he looks. And it was also easy to draw because he's tough.
Yeah, I mean, your caricatures are great, but yeah, there are some people are just tougher than others. So maybe we can use this moment to just pop back out and give people a rest while I ask you some questions. So speaking of Canada being like your local cartoon for you, talk about the difference between drawing foreign cartoons versus domestic, because I think, this is obviously the Overseas Press Club Award and it's about your foreign cartoons, but I always found that sometimes those were harder because we weren't immersed in it like we are with our local politics and
Right.
national politics. So talk about that a little bit.
I mean, for me, as a cartoonist, I'm tasked to cover local Buffalo issues, New York State, issues that affect the whole country, and global issues. Because I think more and more over the years, I've drawn more on global issues than when I started. And part of it's maturing, but also we're becoming more interconnected and global, like with social media. And I think people are just trying to, care about what's going on around the world. It is harder. I agree with you. For me, because you lack the, foreign issues, it's tricky because you don't have the same context. If you're commenting on an issue in a different country, you don't fully know the background of the culture like you do with a city. I know Buffalo intimately, in America as well, but, not knowing every detail of the history makes me want to research it a little bit more before I draw the cartoon to make sure my opinion's right. And also you're communicating, especially when you're posting your work on Twitter and social media, these global cartoons will go farther and reach because of the topic. So your audience is larger and more international. There's different languages being spoken. I've had cartoons on Syria, be retweeted by, people in the Middle East that were threatening me because they were taking it the wrong way, because things can get easily misinterpreted, with the language barrier. So I try to keep those cartoons to be more wordless. Unless it's like Canada or something like that. But yeah, it is a challenge.
Yeah, the European cartoonists and a lot of the cartoonists overseas, they tend to do that because they tend to work without many words just because of the language barriers between countries. But that seemed to kind of fall in that category for me. All right, well, let's take a look at the rest of these cartoons.
All right, let's pop back over here.
Before you start, I have to say, visually, this was my second favorite cartoon of the bunch, just because I just love what you did there. But you can talk about it.
Yeah, this one was a last minute idea. Well, I knew I was trying to comment on this issue, and I love visual solutions, and it did not have this look. My initial sketch just had on the left, well, first off, this was people probably remember, it surfaced that Trump was trying to purchase Greenland, and they of course thought it was a joke at first, and we rebuffed him, the people of the officials in Denmark and Greenland. But I was drawing the concept, but I had his on the right, he was fully in a suit, and I just wasn't fully happy with it. I had not for sale, and I think I had some version of vacant or for rent on his head. And then when I was finishing the final version and sketching it out, I looked at the map of Greenland, and I thought, wait, this could translate over. And so I redrew his face and kind of had that kind of mirror image concept. And then at the last minute, I threw in a little fly, kind of going through his head. So this one just really developed from the pressures of deadline, and I think which made it better. But it was, again, the image, I was happy with the look I captured, sort of that vacant stare, I guess I call it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great.
next cartoon in the portfolio has Boris Johnson reference to Dr. Strangelove, just riding the bomb like a cowboy, and which is Brexit. So again, more of a strong image, and it's funny. I've seen cartoonists, sort of parody this old film, Dr. Strangelove scene, and this was the first time. I've wanted to kind of incorporate this into a cartoon. It just seemed, the timing seemed right when I was looking for some way to express the fact that this Brexit sort of suicide mission he was on, it just was going to economically like annihilate a lot of the the trade relationships they had, and it just seemed sort of crazy from my point of view. He was kind of, in my mind, like the the British version of Trump. So it was fun to draw and kind of switch it up to more of a monochromatic look. I think this one came out great. It was fun one to put together.
Yeah, when we talked earlier, I was asking you about your color work, and this might be a good one to talk about it on. And somebody might have wanted to ask this question anyway, but so you do your inked original, that's on paper, right?
Yeah, the ink, the process I work with, I sketch in just on computer paper, and usually my sketches, I try to keep loose, and the goal is to capture the looseness of like a sketch. And so then I light box it onto actually it looks like the white space around here is kind of similar to the Bristol board I use, gives it a little bit of a border. And use microns, and I have two different size microns that I'll do the finished ink work in. And I'll scan it two different ways. I'll scan it as a bitmap file. So because the Buffalo News, we print the cartoons in black and white. We have printed a few in color, but generally they're 100% black and white. So I'll scan it with bitmap, so the lines are heavier, and so it kind of has more weight in the paper. And then the second scan I'll do as like a RGB photo, so it'll capture the color in the lines, and they won't be 100% black. And because my goal is to create a color work that creates the illusion that it's all hand done. So I transfer those color lines that aren't quite as dark into Painter, Corel Painter, and I'll use my tablet, and I'll layer, sometimes between like 5 to 11 layers of color, and they'll gel into the lines too. So the goal is to make it not as muddy, because sometimes it can get err on the side of muddy, but yeah, it's kind of a process I tweak a lot.
No, it looks to me like watercolor, but I think that's just because you're using Painter, Corel Painter, right?
Yeah, Painter's great. I think Nick Anderson uses Painter like years back. I talked to him about it, and what's cool is you create your own. I create my own paper texture, so I have like Zyglis watercolor paper texture, and you control the grain to it, and then I have like several different brushes that you customize, that you can control the bleeding, and so yeah, so you make it totally your own look. It's an awesome program.
That's great. Next.
I like to keep on a theme, so we have another British cartoon, the special relationship. What I liked about this cartoon was, you mentioned the white space in their Ukraine cartoon. I'm doing more of this. Like my work years past, I felt more pressure to just put backgrounds in all the time, and sometimes that the background is a part of the story, and so I do that and put a lot of time into it. But I love when they're like kind of just white backgrounds. It has this pop to it, and especially when I have the color of baby Trump here. And so if you remember his royal visit, he was kind of sort of breaking protocol, embarrassing sort of the Queen a little bit, and America itself. And there were protests when he visited of this balloon, sort of satirizing him and protesting Trump. So the timing of this with the royal baby, I just thought this was perfect. And of course, I draw from life a lot, so I'm sure it was also me picturing holding my daughter.
No, that's great. You were not kind to the Queen there, but I think your Harry, Prince Harry, is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, he's tough. Yeah, the Queen. I'm looking at it again now. Yeah, I probably could have been a little better on the Queen. Oh, poor Queen.
Well, she is holding Trump, so she's probably that look on her face.
It ages her.
It ages her. Yeah.
So the last few here are also on the same topic. Here I have this, it says the Kurds on his helmet, and I fought with Americans for years, and all I got was a hole in this lousy t-shirt. And you have Trump backstabbing Kurds. And this is in the, I titled this cartoon The Pullout. And at one point I had, you know, I don't know if this is true for you, Rob, but for me, a lot of times I'll go through different versions of my concept or finished, you know, layout before I, you know, settle on one. Like in this, I didn't have the border and I had the pullout as a caption. And I tend to try to take everything, peel it back and edit down. And I think I needed it, but it was, you know, about referencing Trump pulling out of Syria and just kind of really abandoning the Kurds. And it was, I just wanted to capture the feeling, because it was like, you know, backstabbing like allies we've had for years that are going to be killed. So it was a graphic cartoon. You know, I did get a little bit of pushback from my editors about, you know, the image, but I think if it was printed in color, they would have cared more. In black and white, it didn't come across quite so gruesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want it to be strong though. Move on to the final cartoon here.
Yep.
Oh, actually, there's two more.
Yeah, there's two more because, yeah, go ahead.
So here we have the rattlesnake, Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. And this is right around the time of that, the escalator cartoon I did with Trump coming down the escalator and escalating war. This is sort of another take on that same issue. A lot of cartoonists, you know, will have like 2 or 3 points we want to make on the same news event. And this was the case where I wanted to say something else, and to sort of show that Trump, you know, being chummy with Mohammed bin Salman, he was just sort of like shaking the war rattle for Saudi, because he was really defending their interests as an ally after Iran attacked some of the oil fields. And knowing how nefarious this guy is, it just, you know, it wasn't good company to be defending him like that.
Right. No, I like this one, especially because the bomb that Trump is holding, it looks like a baby rattle.
Right. Yeah, it has an added layer of he's just a child, but also kind of like a tool, you know, the useful idiot that people talk about, like where he's sort of manipulated by some of these other world leaders in a way. Mm-hmm. And the last one here, the Turkey offensive, and this was also another take on the Syria situation, where you got President Erdogan on the right, and when he invaded northern Syria, and Putin also having interest in the region. So this is really a reference to a famous cartoon by James Gilray, who I think it was like 1805. He's a British cartoonist. I love some of the old cartooning. You know, they're like paintings. So it was beautiful, and this was also close to Thanksgiving, I believe. So I kind of initially I had him as Trump as a turkey, and it didn't originally start as this parody, and it kind of evolved into it. I had him being carved up, and then I thought of that image, and I should pull it up at one, you know, if I should have had it ready, but it's the British Prime Minister on the left where Putin is, and Napoleon on the right, and they're carving up the world, and it's I think it's called Plum Pudding in Danger or something like that, but yeah, I've always loved kind of, you know, giving homage to cartoonists that inspire me, or you know, and other pieces of pop culture. So this was a fun one.
Yeah, I've got it here. I don't know if I can make it big enough, but let me see if I can open this image.
Do you want me to stop share? Do you want to share the screen, or?
Hold on one second. Yeah, now I can. Yeah, so you can stop share, and I'll try to share this. There, can you see that?
Yep.
Is that it? Yeah.
That's it. Plum pudding in danger.
Yeah. It says the plum pudding in danger, or the state of epicures. Can't quite read it all. Taking un petit souper, the great globe itself and all which it inherit is too small to satisfy such insatiable appetites. Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, that's, let's see, stop sharing. Okay, back to you. So anyway, that was great. I love those cartoons, and we, you know, it was a unanimous decision. Your your cartoons were some of the best we'd seen. So so that was great. And you deserve it, and congratulations.
Thank you, Rob.
And I have some more questions, but maybe we should talk to Chad and see if there are any questions from the audience yet. Chad, do we have any questions?
We do have a couple of questions. We have one that reads, I think Adam said that women are hard to draw. Could he expand on that a bit?
Yeah, I think, well, I guess what I had in mind was Hillary, like the women, the political, in my political cartoons that I tried to caricature are to capture. I think it's sometimes men are easier because they're not as good looking, and their features are more, you know, their features are stronger and more easily pulled into shapes. And I think sort of like finer, softer lines and softer eyebrows and softer features are harder with a black line. I mean, I think it's more just in terms of the medium so much. I don't know if you can relate to that, Rob, at all, but.
Yeah, I have trouble with that too. And I think it's the nature of caricature. I mean, you know, we were raised as gentlemen and
right, that's true.
So,
let me turn a light on real quick here. Sorry.
Trying to be polite to the women in our lives. So you know, caricature for me is always about exaggerating some sort of grotesque, you know, politician. And oftentimes, if it's a woman politician, I do have a harder time sometimes because I tend to be, you know, it's the same with any kind of caricature of maybe, you know, African Americans or other ethnicities. You have to be very careful not to cross the line into racist or with women misogynistic depictions. And I think that's something that's always on our minds.
Right. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And there's history of cartoonists, that, or artists in general that, have racist images. And we're very careful to make sure that what we communicate doesn't send the wrong message.
Yeah, but caricature by its nature is sort of a, you know, it's a bludgeon, you know, I mean, it's meant to be a tool that we use to really rip somebody. And so oftentimes it's difficult, but that's the game, you know, that's what we're doing. And sometimes we get hate mail for it.
Right. And I like the challenge. And I think the more you draw somebody, like if Hillary would become president, you would see her caricature evolve, much like, you know, the other presidents we have. And maybe, you know, it would be a lot of things become shorthand, like how Trump's tie is always long. Obama had big ears. Same with George W. Bush, always had the big ears and the squinty eyes, and things evolve from there. But especially the first couple of times taking on a person, like it becomes, you know, much more challenging. And you have to figure out the way you want to approach it.
Right. Was there another question, Chad?
Yes, we have a few stacked up.
Okay.
I'm going to ask, there's two questions from one poster. I'll ask the first one first and then wait. What happened in your life that made you a cartoonist?
What terrible thing happened to me that I decided to pick up the pen and, well, I don't know if we have enough time for this therapy session right now, but no, I grew up drawing, and when I was 5 years old, I would just sit down and draw and I remember creating like characters out of like monkeys in Madagascar. I remember getting books of zoology from my parents and just wanting to draw them. And I was drawn to things in life. So I had that background where I loved that. And then throughout high school and going into college, I started getting slowly hooked into current events. And I never thought I wanted to be a political cartoonist. I wanted to go for computer science and math. I was trying to sort of blend both sides of my brain to do computer graphics, where I wanted to think critically, use mathematics, and come up with visuals. So use both sides. And it wasn't really like that. I mean, in software engineering, you have the technical people and then you have the artists, and you kind of work as a team, but you don't really do both. And when I was going to school at Canisius for that, I would join the school paper and just for fun. And my honors English professor talked me into it. And I just got addicted to the weekly cartoon, this process of controlling this little space of, where I could say whatever I wanted to. And I started understanding the responsibility that came with that when I was pissing off people around campus. And I started criticizing certain things, poking fun at things around campus, and getting blowback, getting feedback. And so I loved the interaction, the free speech, the voice component of that. And at some point when I was a senior, I thought, I'll do my honors thesis on this instead of computer engineering. And just, what the hell, it's fun. I love it. It's a passion. And one thing led to another. And that was the start of, a career. So.
Yeah, childhood trauma was the answer. So there you go.
Official answer, childhood trauma. Notice how I tried to cover that.
Yeah, you brushed right over that, No. Yeah, I think, for many of us, it's an escape, so I think anybody you talk to would say that it becomes an escape for you and part of your personality after a while. And for me, it was the one thing that, my parents would look at me and actually recognize something, and say,
right.
Oh, that's really great. And so, of course, you want to keep doing that. So, but yeah, I was the same way. I was drawing since the time I was a little kid and never looked back, really.
And now that I'm thinking about it, if there's one thing, it would actually probably be 9/11 that would bring me into political cartooning. Because before 9/11, I was in college when that happened, and I was drawing on stuff around campus and had a comic strip. I was poking fun. It was kind of an editorial cartoon, but not after 9/11, I started drawing political cartoons.
Good answer.
All right, we have another question asking whether you have done anything yet on Ruth Bader Ginsburg in heaven.
In heaven, I have seen a few cartoons take on her, what she'd be thinking or doing in heaven. I think I remember seeing some suggesting that Donald Trump's coronavirus, she's working her magic upstairs. Let's say that. I haven't depicted her in heaven, but I've drawn Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I've commented on her and her, proposed replacement in the Supreme Court hearings, Amy Coney Barrett. But I don't know, Rob, I've really only have drawn a couple cartoons ever in my career depicting somebody in heaven. And
well, this is sort of the dreaded topic of the obituary cartoon, because I don't know about you, but I really hate them. Because usually the one thing that an obituary cartoon says that really, all it really says is this person died. Now, you can go further and say this person died and they did a lot in their life. And if you can find a way to do that, then I think, that the reason they'll be missed is because of this. Then I think that's good. But yeah, I don't really do too many Pearly Gates cartoons.
I've never done a Pearly Gates cartoon. There's only 3 like obit cartoons that I've done that stand out in my mind. I avoid them like you, and I've talked to my editors about it. And to me, I'm wasting an opportunity to make an editorial comment or statement about something important. So the ones I have done have either like really been special to me or just like a community thing. Like when Tim Russert died in Buffalo, and he didn't die in Buffalo necessarily, but I'm just saying like the Buffalo community was mourning. Ralph Wilson, the owner of the Bills, that's another one. And then other than that, Robin Williams, when he died, it was my obit cartoon was more of a comment on depression though. Mm-hmm. In a cage, and it was called The Bird Cage. And I had him, Robin was on his, little stand, and he just looked trapped and the cage was depression. And he looked just very forlorn and just, empty. And it was just a comment that like, you feel how you feel like that you're trapped. I was referencing his acting career, and I got some flack for that. But I actually had a woman call me who was like, I had to talk her off the ledge almost. Like she was in tears saying, how dare I publish that? Yeah. And she was like screaming at me. And it turned out she was very depressed. And then I calmed her down, and she was like, your drawing is exactly how I feel and how dare you. And I was like, I'm just trying to show everyone how it's not your fault. Like, this is just, it's a disease, and, you know, I'm trying to create some compassion for it. So
Yeah.
I'm with you, obit cartoons.
Yeah, generally I don't like them, but it turns out that they're one of the most popular things for
popular
readers, because they do find connection there, and it's usually not a political statement necessarily, unless it's a very polarizing figure. But that's why I like them on certain people, like you said. Like, I did one for Mr. Rogers when he passed away. And you know, and that was a very well received cartoon. So there are certain ones that you sort of feel that you need to do, but but generally, you know, I like to comment on what they did in their life rather than the fact that they are no longer here.
Right.
And I certainly try not to do too many. I have done a few with the pearly gates, I'll admit it, but I, you know, then they weren't my best cartoons. So we'll leave it at that.
Before you mentioned Amy Coney Barrett, somebody asked about whether you had done anything with her yet and how you would handle her. So maybe you could speak to how that happened.
Yeah, I think I just finished a cartoon today for tomorrow's paper. Would be my third cartoon that was on Amy Barrett, just because, you know, it's huge right now in the confirmation hearings. You know, for me, you know, if you look at like the two cartoons that are already published, I mean, the first one I drew was just my initial reaction to her selection. You know, her background was very, you know, she in her dissents and her record and her voting record, she's very anti-women's rights, and it's sort of against a lot of the things that, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was for. So the fact that she is a woman was sort of like Trump and the Republicans' way of saying, like, hey, it's okay, she's a woman. So I had an elephant just sort of saying, but she's a woman, and like she's standing on these, you know, placards and like protest signs of all the, you know, Roe v. Wade, like women's rights, right to choose, like all those things that, you know, are representative of the women's movement. Because she is a certain gender, I think it's meant to soften the blow, that she could be, you know, really repeal a lot of these things and pull it back. So, and that, I did one with her on repealing, having the final nail in Obama and the Affordable Care Act, and then another pro-life cartoon that'll be in tomorrow's paper.
Okay, we have another question that I'm just going to read the whole text here.
Sure.
Adam, you mentioned local cartoons, which of course you do because you're one of the few cartoonists attached to a newspaper. What percentage of your cartoons are local, and do you tend to draw international cartoons because you live on a border?
That's a good question. I think it fluctuates. It depends on the news cycle and what the big stories are. A couple of years back, I do remember having a conversation with my editor. I draw 5 cartoons a week, and I remember the editor told me, the publisher at the time, who Stan Lipsey, he wanted to have a discussion about local work. He had imposed sort of a local quota on the number of editorials that the paper has, which I don't think exists anymore. This was the previous publisher. And I went into his office and talked to him, and he basically was like, look, your local work is great. You know, we love your voice locally, so we want two a week to be local every week out of my 5. And, you know, I made the argument that I would love to have 2. I'd love to have 3 every week of local cartoons, but the nature of what I do, it's not like an editorial where I can just write on a topic. I look at cartoons as, you know, there's a message to it, like in an editorial, but there's a creative concept that expresses that message, and then there's the artwork. And the heart of it's that creative concept. And if you don't have an original, creative, thoughtful, or funny concept for that news story, then you'll be you'll be forcing work that isn't your best just to make a quota. And I told them, if you just, let me do what I do, some weeks I will have 3 or 2, some weeks I'll have none. So it just really depends. And lately, with how the last year or so, with how or more than last year, how much Trump has dominated the news. I think that the sort of black hole of news that Trump creates, it takes local news takes a hit. In my work, I've drawn fewer local cartoons because people are so focused on the national. And I would say that being on a border city, I do more cartoons on Canada and international as well. So,
speaking of the Amy Coney Barrett cartoon, I just pulled it up here, so I'm going to share my screen to show people your cartoon. I just pulled it up on your syndicate site here. There it is. So there's the one where she's standing on all the signs. I think that's a good caricature. That's nice.
Thanks. I was. Yeah, after I just got done saying women are hard, I was happy with that one. She's got that kind of really intense look to her.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't too mean. It was fair, I thought.
And then actually, here's another one, and I guess they do it in, that's what your black and white cartoon would look like, right?
Right, that's right.
So it says final nail, and it's Amy Coney Barrett's arm, and she's using the judge's mallet to hammer the coffin shut on millions of uninsured. I like this one. I'm going to steal that one.
Nice. Actually, I have the one for tomorrow. I can do a sneak peek here. And
oh, you do? Okay, let me stop sharing. There we go.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that here. Share screen.
Yeah, I think people like to see things before they appear. Sometimes it's kind of cool. I've done that too, where I'll be giving a talk and the next day's cartoon happens to be on my computer, so I'll say, okay, here it is. You know, right. Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So this isn't colored yet, but just, I mean, it's on, her, but it's just this concept that in the pro-life sort of view of justice, or just like the balance of, one Supreme Court justice is so much more important than how many like things that represent death. I mean, the death, this administration has brought back the death penalty, 216,000 COVID deaths, and trying to shoot down Obamacare, which is creating more people, it's causing more people to die if you take Obamacare away. But, pro-lifers will turn a blind eye to all that just to get a Supreme Court justice that, views the same thing on abortion.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of like a, thoughtful visual metaphor cartoon, but it's
yeah, but it's a nice use of that scale, because, we all sort of look for, what metaphors and devices we can use to show the justice, and it's usually Lady Justice with a scale or a sword, and
right.
And this is a nice use of that, because clearly she's not heavier than all of those deaths, but right. on the pro-life scale she is. That's really good.
Thanks.
All right, so do we have other questions?
Yes, we have one request, actually. Someone would like to know if you have a cartoon that makes fun of Buffalo that you could show us.
Let's see. I definitely have poked fun at our hometown here. I'm trying to think that I could show you. I don't know if I'd have to search for it. And honestly, I probably would have more cartoons defending other people making fun of Buffalo than making fun of the city myself. But I do poke fun at like some of our local residents that aren't so wise sometimes, or our local politicians. I don't think I have anything offhand that I can pull up.
Oh, here, I have one that I just found. Let me see if I can open it in a page here. Yeah, that worked. Let me share the screen. Hold on one second. This seems like a recent one. I just did a Google search, so I don't know if it.
Oh, I have a Tom Brady when he. I have a lot of Bills cartoons, that's for sure.
Yeah, this is 2020. So tell us what this is.
So Tom Brady is like the public enemy #1 in Buffalo, because he has just basically, dominated the AFC East, and the Bills have been really held back because the Patriots have been so dominant. So this is saying, now with Tom Brady gone as a buck, the Bills can finally buck the Pats and like actually be dominant in the AFC East. And sure enough, Josh Allen and the Bills have been on a pretty good tear, except for last night, which was really tough to watch. They were pretty flat-footed, but yeah, it's funny. A lot of my local cartoons are Bills, Sabres. sometimes it's, City Hall and corruption, or just social. Actually, a few cartoons recently were Buffalo Police. I've gone after quite a bit, and that's gotten me into some trouble over the years. But
well, that's a great caricature, Brady, and he's a pretty boy. So you got
but they take longer.
Yeah, I know.
I have to redraw that a couple times.
No, that was terrific, but yeah, not bad for just a quick Google search there. So
nice.
I think we have time for a couple more questions.
Well, someone has asked, how can the OPC help save cartoonists?
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, they can, well, for one, I mean, keeping the award going and really supporting them, like, I think it's not a lot of cartooning awards give monetary prizes, and the prestige of the OPC, both that and giving award money, like it's supporting cartoon, it's inspiring cartoonists to keep creating and to keep entering. And I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak to what they can do as an organization. I don't know if, if Rob, if you have any insight into that, but I just think, having cartooning as an element in their award program, I think alone is important.
Yeah, I think any organization, reputable journalism organization that recognizes satire as an important part of the journalistic efforts that are happening is great, and that does a lot. That goes a long way to help the cartooning industry in terms of its importance. As far as trying to sort of save jobs for cartoonists, I think that's more of an economic thing that I don't think any one group has the answer for that.
Yeah.
I think somebody like Jeff Bezos has more opportunity to save. He could hire all of us to just work freelance, and it would be a drop in the bucket for him. But no, the Overseas Press Club is just like any other organization. They do great work, but they also I think take donations, because I believe they're a nonprofit. Is that correct, Chad? Do you know?
I can answer that.
Or Patty? Yeah.
Yeah, wait, I'll do my video. We're a nonprofit membership organization. And so you can't deduct what you donate to the OPC from your tax returns, but we can, help promote the value that you do. And I have to say, in the last couple years, we had raised money to subsidize the entry fees for the awards competition, because cartoonists in particular had complained that some of the other competitions, the entry fee was lower. And we didn't feel like we could, for administrative and fairness purposes, we have to have everybody's entry fee be the same. But what we have now is money to subsidize entry fees. The entry fee is $200, and we can give subsidies that can reduce it to $50 for people who ask for a subsidy. And I have to say, a lot of the ones who asked were cartoonists. Mm-hmm. So we try to help that way.
Yeah, and I think that's made a difference in terms of people entering or not, because there are cartoonists like myself who used to be at a newspaper and now are freelancing. So the cost becomes prohibitive when you have several cartoon contests to enter. So no, it's been very helpful.
No, we understand that it in this day and age, any amount of money can be a lot for freelancers.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings up another topic, and I don't know how many more questions we have, Chad, but one of the questions I get a lot is, what is the future for editorial cartooning? And is it, I mean, will we see maybe a rebirth of newspapers? Could that possibly happen where enough people are saying, I want to finance this newspaper, or I want to finance that newspaper? Or do you think, we're really headed for a time when there may not be any print journalism, and we're only going to see online cartoons? Oh, Adam is you're muted again. I'm not sure how that happened, but okay.
You're unmuted now.
Okay. I mean, it's an impossible question to really answer, but I feel like the reach of newspapers still remains incredibly strong. Like, I mean, so we have a new publisher at the Buffalo News, Tom Wiley, and he spent almost a year sort of researching some of his ideas before he took over. And then he got numbers on our current reach in our market and our penetration rate. And the Buffalo News is one of those really strong regional papers that had an 80% penetration rate like years and years ago. And the numbers he got back were we still have 80% of the market, of all readers, of all people in Western New York see the Buffalo News. Granted, the portion of that is the website, but even the print product still has, I want to say, 60% of the readers in Western New York. So it's one of those things where, like Rob, like some papers like the Minneapolis Star Tribune and the Boston Globe have figured out how to get subscriptions to the point where they can support a newsroom. Mm-hmm. I think like editors and publishers around the country are really trying to see who's making it work, and hopefully slowly enough newspapers will, figure that equation out where they can finance. Granted, in the long run, they're going to need some rich people to step in, like Jeff Bezos, and a lot of papers aren't going to make it. I tend to think it's going to be a mix. I think that newspapers will survive, and they'll be more of a niche. And the irony is, cartoons are more and more popular. They're more popular than ever because they're so shareable on social media. So you're going to see like a new crop of cartoonists that aren't really drawing in the traditional manner. And the challenge will be, how do you get them to make money? And I think Rob, you've been such a creative, everyone admires your work, and you're one of the most brilliant cartoonists in the country. And when you lost your job, everyone was like, are you kidding me? Like Rob Rogers? Like, how is this happening? And so, everyone reached out to support, and you were forced to figure out a new model like many other freelancers out there before you. So I think publications are going to continue to support cartooning, but there needs to slowly be more of like a culture shift and an acceptance that this is, sort of like an important part of American journalism. I think, there's times where that wavers. Continuing having these awards and continuing to show the importance of cartooning will help. But having the economics catch up, that's going to be the key.
Before we go, I want to share, I did find one local cartoon that you did. I don't know how recent this was, but I'm going to share the screen again. 2017, it looks like. Do you remember what prompted this?
Yes, this was during the refugee ban, like when Trump, on refugees coming from Sudan, Iraq, Iran, Burma, Syria, Somalia. I had these are people, these are sects of Buffalonians. These are there's neighborhoods with some of these ethnicities that are they're great people in Buffalo. We have actually a really big Burmese population in Buffalo, and when Trump had the travel ban. This was my response to that. I wanted to do something positive. And at the bottom, it says city, I think it's a little cropped off for me anyway. I think it says city of good neighbors, which is what Buffalo is known as. Right. So I had them saying, this is what we're making Buffalo great again. And really in the Rust Belt city of Buffalo, we've had a lot of our population gains have been from refugees and immigrants. And they're injecting culture and life into our city that we need. So, and here in Buffalo, it's very liberal, progressive in the city, but very rural. Trump supporters like outside of the area, much like Pittsburgh. But it was my sort of like rebuke to that, you know, my rebuttal. And that one's been, people are making lawn signs out of it, and it continues to be a popular cartoon.
Yeah, no, that was a great one. I was also wondering, what are some of the local topics that you find to be, I mean, besides the sports, is there any, I mean, do you have any interesting mayors or even the governor? I mean, I guess the
Yes,
governor.
Governor Cuomo has been great in terms of cartoons, because he's, you know, he likes to, you know, I mean, he created this Buffalo Billion initiative, and some of that has been controversial and corrupt. So there's a lot of corruption in the state. So Cuomo's been, and he's great to draw. I mean, talk about, you know, like all the lines in his face, and he's got this Italian mob quality to him. For a while, a big push for me was the bishop and the sex abuse scandal. Buffalo had a priest abuse scandal that was very much like Boston, and it was like, you know, the lawsuits were growing, the allegations were growing, the pressure to have the bishop resign was just mounting, Bishop Malone. So at one point, I was almost having like a cartoon a week on that, and I remember my editor was like thrilled that we were strong on this. And I would hear from somebody from the bishop's team that he was very sensitive to these cartoons. And he was on, like, when the new editor-in-chief, he's not new anymore, Mike Connolly, took over a few years ago, and he met the bishop. The first thing he said to him was, "Now we got to talk about that cartoonist." So he was not happy with, you know, with my work. So that was a sign that, you know, I was, you know, my work was effective.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. Yeah, my publisher had a similar relationship with the bishop in Pittsburgh. So, all right. Well, Chad, do we have one last question, or is this a good place to stop?
It seems like maybe we could wrap up at this
Okay.
point.
All right. Well, thank you to the Overseas Press Club of America, and thank you to Patty and Chad for pulling this together, and mostly thank you to Adam Ziglis in Buffalo for being a great cartoonist and for winning this year's award. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Rob, and thanks for being an inspiration to me. You know, I've always loved your work, and it was an honor to be with you on this panel. And thank you to Patty and the Overseas Press Club again. It's an amazing honor, and I'm, you know, very grateful.
Thank you for the insight into the cartoonist's creative brain. It was fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Thank you.